I'm back with some more woke words. Just a few today. Resilient, student-led or student-directed, stakeholder, and community. I'm sure you've heard these all before. I've mentioned them before on my channel, but we're going to go into a little more depth today. Starting with resilient. It's a word you might hear a lot, usually in connection with social emotional learning, which is supposed to help your child be more resilient. But what does it mean to be resilient anyway? It sounds like a good idea, right? Don't I want my child to be resilient? Well, it depends. What are your other options? Okay, and what do they mean by resilient? And what are the stressors or the challenges, which is another word that means something else to them, that your child needs to be resilient in the face of? What if they're created by the teachers in the school themselves? What if they're created by the pedagogy? What if the critical pedagogy is designed to make your child feel stressed and anxious and uncomfortable? And then to sit in their discomfort. And then they need to bounce back. Resilient, like a rubber band. Bing, bing. Except what's the problem here? Do you really want your child to be resilient when trapped in an environment with people who are hurting them? Do you really want your child to be like that blow-up clown doll that we had? If you're Gen X or even, I think, end of boomer generation, remember that big clown that you blow up and you'd punch it and it would bounce and it'd go like this and it would bounce back and you'd punch it again? And kind of violent, that thing we had, but it certainly helped us get out our aggressions, didn't it? We were like 4 and 5 years old. Anyway, I had one and it was kind of fun. You'd push it down and bounce back up and we were just, mesmerized by how that worked. But I was the one doing the punching. The clown bounced back up so I could punch it again and again and again and again. Is that what you want for your child? To have those kind of non-existent boundaries? More, please. Please hurt me some more. Please, please love me. Oh, I got to do something different. Oh, you want me to change? Oh, okay. Can I still be welcome and esteemed? What do I have to do? Get where I'm going with this? So the idea is resilient is we want them to be able to tolerate increasing amounts of discomfort and bigger demands and to have fewer and fewer boundaries. It's a fancy, fancy word for codependence. Yes, that's exactly what they want. Resilience in the woke world equals codependence. When what you probably really want for your child is for them to be anti-fragile. What's the difference? Well, let me explain. Human beings are anti-fragile. That means we're designed to be stronger after we've been stressed. That's kind of how evolution worked, right? It's how we work. It's how our muscles work. Go to the gym, right? You hurt yourself a little bit. Oh, I'm sore. But guess what? Next day you're stronger, right? And anti-fragile people don't stick around when people are hurting them and making them uncomfortable and picking on them and tearing at the fibers of their identity so that it can be sewn back up in a little patchwork quilt of other identities that are going to be easier to manipulate or coalesce around a political cause. Anti-fragile people say, oh, what are you doing? I get to decide who I am, what I want to learn, where I want to go in life, you're not going to plug me into your 21st century skill set or your labor force needs or your collective or the social whatever structures or the gender roles that you think I should have, namely none. You want this androgynous ideal. You're assaulting my boundaries and I don't like it. So I'm not going to do it. In that case, anti-fragile will be strong enough to say no. An anti-fragile person walks away from abuse if they physically can, and if they physically can't because they're trapped in a school building, they might come to the parents and say, get me the hell out of here. They're hurting me. And they'd have the spine to do that. Or they would just tell the people internally to cut the crap. They don't want that. They demonstrably don't want that. What happens to students who push back? They fail. What happens to students who say, I'm not filling out your survey, I'm not doing your thing, I'm not joining your group, I'm not doing group work, etc.? Well, they're oppositional and they're defiant and they have some antisocial behaviors that we need to work on. They need to be more resilient. They're very uncomfortable with change. No, they're anti-fragile. They're not your codependent in your abusive relationship, and they aren't playing. It's their life. So you see, you don't really want your children to be resilient by their definition. You want them to be anti-fragile. So when you see the word resilient, I want your brain to immediately go codependent. And the people using the term resilient are the abusers. They are gaslighting you, right? Resilient, not a good word. All right, let's go to student-led. Student-led. Sounds good, right? Like, why should I want the students to lead? Why would you bother sending them to a school again? Every time I say you should homeschool or bring them home, I don't know how to teach them. Well, what do you care? It's being student-led. Like, just bring them home, let them lead the way. Let them tell you what they're going to learn. And believe me, I know some homeschoolers who do that, and that's a little different in a home environment because it's still the parent who's setting whatever the boundaries are around the student-led. You know, the student is not leading themselves out the door to the bar, you know, or leading themselves to, you know, the video game for 8 hours a day or whatever maybe they are. But the point is, you still have eyes on and you get to decide, and it's probably a little different kind of student-led. Student-led, or another term for this would be inquiry-based learning, is just a way for the teacher to sort of like, hands up, I give up. I want the kids to be interested in one, you know, because being interested is so much more important these days than anything. Being engaged, that's a whole other video. That'll be tomorrow. So, you know, let the students decide, then the students will like me and think I'm cool and think school is fun and I don't have to do any work, or I don't have to work as hard to have them be interested because they decided. And then guess what? Most importantly, if I'm an activist, see, if I'm just lazy, I don't do work. If I'm an activist, I am a Freirean who's saying the students will lead. Of course, I'll surround them in their environment by all kinds of things like Marxist claptrap literature, struggle literature, gender-related stuff, all the ideologies that I want them to ask questions about. That's called generative. I'm going to generate these questions. So it's student-led after I created the, you know, climate. That's another video. So many words, so many days, so many words. Anyway, so after they do that, they create this climate for inquiry. And you'll notice they don't have like balance anywhere in the representation in the room. So the kids are like, what is this? And what does it mean to be non-binary? And what is trans? And what is it? The students started it. They asked. This is a student-led and student-directed classroom. So I'm following their lead. We're doing inquiry-based in math. So, you know, it's what they want to learn about math. It's their inquiry. They're bringing their relevant questions. Of course, these kids are brand new on the planet. They don't know much about anything. They don't know when or why they might need to use math or need to use English, certainly when to use grammar. Why would they know? They have no frame of reference. Why are you letting them lead? What happened to adults leading? What happened to discipleship, from which comes the word discipline? And then we wonder, why is there a little 9-year-old girl getting her head bashed in by a much older 8th grade boy on the school bus? Why is this a daily occurrence? Why are fights and total chaos in the classroom a daily occurrence? Could it be because of all that student-led learning? When the students feel like they're in charge of the learning, where do you stop it? Where do you cut it off? Where do you say, okay, now I need you to sit down and behave and not scream and yell and fight and throw things? Guess what? You don't. You can't. You have not positioned yourself in the classroom as an authority on anything. In fact, you've told the students they're an authority on everything. So why would they behave any better than the worst amongst them? I'm not suggesting every one of 20 or 30 kids is going to go hog wild like Lord of the Flies, but you don't really need 20 or 30, do you? 1 or 2 will suffice. And probably in any randomized group of 20 or 30 kids, you're going to find 1 or 2 who have maybe chaos at home or just no discipline anywhere, or they haven't had it because they've been in school since daycare, since they were 18 months old or even infancy. And if it's been student-led the whole time, then when were they learning about manners and behaving and listening? When were they learning about respecting other people and boundaries? Well, if you're not teaching it to them, if you're not modeling it, and we know they're not modeling it because they're not respecting the students' boundaries. Here's a survey. Fill it out. Tell me all about yourself. Tell me about your innermost thoughts and feelings and needs and desires. And what is mommy like? And what is daddy like? And I'm seeking all this information. You're violating boundaries. So you're letting the students lead where it's important, where you need to lead. And then you're violating and trampling all over them and leading them around by the nose when it comes to their emotions and who they are and what they should be feeling and thinking and everything else, because you are seeking. And when you seek that hard, you're sending a message to children that all this information you're seeking is desperately important. So while they might not be thinking it's super important how they felt today, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, but now I feel better. But if you start digging in there, they got to access. I got to please the teacher, come up with something. Yeah, okay. So it was inquiry based. We were just letting the students lead the day, and they wanted to discuss. You see how it works? So whether it's student led, inquiry based, student centered, not good. Not good in that environment. You want to do that at home, in your environment where you know what your discipline standards are and you're modeling it some other kind of way and it's just purely for the academics. I'm not going to sit here and judge. You know your kid, you know your home, you know your life. But in a school setting, totally inappropriate. Totally inappropriate. So, not good. Stakeholder. This is a sort of a WEF kind of a thing. This is a BlackRock, Larry Fink, stakeholder capitalism kind of thing. But stakeholders in a classroom is just a fancy way of saying that individuals don't matter. Individuals don't matter. And that only the people who will benefit from the student being there, benefit from what the student is learning or doing, they matter. And ironically, it's never the student. It's only the collective of all the students, which is an abstract, which of course the students can't possibly understand, and even half the teachers don't understand when I talk to them. So stakeholders are these imaginary people who, when you really drill right down to it, are the people in the position of ultimate power way up wherever they're making all the decisions for all of us, okay? It's not you and it's not your kid. It's just a code word for everybody but you. Other people are more important than you. The group is more important than you. Stakeholders. We have to take into account all the stakeholders. And just like I said, you're either not it or you're it, but you're so tiny like a grain of sand that your individual voice doesn't matter. So you better get with the program so you can feel like you matter. See, if you start agreeing with large numbers of people who are deemed stakeholders, then you feel like, oh yes, we had a role to play because they checked in with the stakeholders of this decision or whatever. And I'm one of them because I agree with these millions of people. Yeah, but what if you didn't? What if you didn't? What if you were that guy in the picture with the Nazis saluting and this dude? What if you were this guy? Are you a stakeholder? No, you're not. And neither is your kid. So moving on to community. Community, again, something you're not part of. If you read the documents very closely, community is now a way of hiding the fact that parents are almost never mentioned. Or if they are mentioned, they're mentioned insofar as they are going to facilitate and help and most importantly fund the activities of the school community, the people who work for it, the people who run it, the people within the building. Your kid is not even really part of it, except insofar as they're being used as a product to buy and sell and so forth. So you are not part of the community. So if you think that you have a school community or our community is so important to us, blah, 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 no, you're not. And again, the proof is you can't say no. The proof is when you ask questions as an individual family, you're demonized, you're belittled, you're condescended to, you're lied to. So do you feel like you're part of the community? No, that's not what communities are. It's at best a loose network of people who are brought together arbitrarily by government. Even private school communities are not really communities. It's more like a cult or a gang in that you better agree with what whoever the top dog is saying what you need to do. And if you don't, you're going to get kicked out. It's a lot more like, let's say, The Village from M. Night Shyamalan than it is like The Nice Village that Hillary Clinton was allegedly talking about when she said it took a village. So if you hear community and you think how warm and fuzzy and they all love me and care about me and my children, no, they don't. No, they don't. And the only reason you may feel that way right now is that you, for the moment, seem to agree with them because you haven't challenged them. You haven't challenged them. Try challenging them on anything at all. See how that goes. Yeah. You'll quickly find out they aren't talking about you. It's everybody else but you. Why are you being so hard? The community needs this. Why are you hurting the community? Why do you want to attack your community? This is your community. This is your child's community. Why are you trying to hurt the community? So you're not in it. You're not in it. They don't want to hear from you. No individuals allowed. Okay? So what's the theme of all of these words in all the videos I've done so far, and it will continue to be all along? Collectivism. Collectivism. That's right. And all the isms, by the way, racism, Marxism, fascism, socialism, even feminism. They're isms of collectivism, right? Okay. So just anytime you hear any of these words, think about that. Think about these are people who seriously believe in a collectivist utopia. They can't articulate what it's going to look like yet. They don't care. All they know is they want to tear down everything that is, and they're using your child to do it. And they're not waiting for your child to be old enough to stick a gun or a rock or a bomb or something in their hand. They want them to become the living, breathing implements of this war, this culture war. And it's a culture war before it's going to be an economic war, before it's going to be an actual war, because that's how it works. Politics is downstream of culture. Economics is downstream of politics. They might say, no, it's not. Economics is between individuals, whatever. Ideally, except look around. How much of that dozen of eggs cost you? Okay, not so much. So they all have that in common. Individuals are not allowed. Saying no is not allowed. It's not. You better have your reasons, and your reasons are still not good enough. So that's today's video. Thank you for watching. I hope you find these helpful. If you do, please like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and I'll see you next time.